Okay, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are calling from. Thank you so much for joining Critical Issues Forum speaker series. It's been a while since we had this meeting last time, so I'm just so excited, especially today's meeting. A lot of participants in today's meeting are from around the world, so I'm so excited. Okay, so my name is Masako Toki. I'm a senior project manager of the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, and I'm a project manager of the Critical Issues Forum High School Students Project. So I am going to share my screen. So let me just bear with me just a little bit. Okay, it's okay, great. Okay, so I'm really excited to welcome you to our speaker series, Voices for Nuclear Weapon Free World, Youth in Action. It's really wonderful to have such inspiring young nuclear disarmament activists and scholars joining us for today's event. So today's program will have two parts. First, we'll hear from Mr. Franco Escobar, a PhD candidate at Kiel University in the United Kingdom. And after that, we'll have a student panel discussion. But before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce our center, James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, and the Critical Issues Forum, and this project, because many of you know about this project, but perhaps some of you may be the first time to join Critical Issues Forum event. So I work at this center in Montreal, James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Montreal. And our center was founded in 1989 by Dr. William Potter. The mission of CNS is to combat the spread of weapons of mass destruction by training the next generation of non-proliferation specialists and providing timely research, analysis, and information to the global community. We carry out this mission through a wide range of research, education, and training programs. The Critical Issues Forum is one of the CNS's flagship non-proliferation and disarmament education projects designed to promote disarmament and non-proliferation education among high school students around the world. Currently, we are working with high schools across the United States and Japan. And this year, we also started engaging high schools from India and Pakistan to the program. So engaging students and educators from these countries is especially important as they play a key role in shaping nuclear policy and dialogue in their regions. The CIF speaker series is part of the educational outreach program, and it is open to everyone who is interested in learning about and contributing to a more peaceful world. The goals of the Critical Issues Forum project are to help students appreciate diverse national and cultural perspectives on complex international security issues, empower students to contribute international peace, security, disarmament, and non-proliferation, while also developing their critical thinking and intercultural communication skills. So these are CIF major annual activities. So normally, the CIF holds an in-person students conference in Montreal, California, where our research center is located. In the past, we've also had the privilege of hosting conferences in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Japan, as well as Vienna, Austria. At the spring conference, student representatives from each CIF high school present the results of their semester-long research project. We also invite distinguished guest speakers to share their insights and inspire the students. So each year, we select a timely and relevant topic related to nuclear disarmament. for the students to explore. The CIF project aims to empower students through non-proliferation and disarmament education, helping them become informed and engaged global citizens who can contribute to peace, security, and social justice. Our most recent CIF conference was held in Montreal, California, earlier this year in March, as 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The conference theme was 80 years of struggle, revitalizing nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation through cross-cultural youth engagement. We'll be announcing the details for our next conference very soon, so please stay tuned. But why is it so important to engage youth in nuclear disarmament education and activities? Today's event is designed to inspire and engage more young people in the movement for nuclear disarmament. According to the United Nations Population Fund, young people aged 10 to 24 make up about 24% of the world population in 2025. That's roughly 1.8 billion individuals, the largest generation of youth in human history. So this unprecedented demographic group holds immense potential to shape the future of peace, security, and sustainability. So it's really crucial to engage them meaningfully in disarmament and non-proliferation efforts now, while also fostering diversity and inclusion, both today and the future. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres states, more education and training opportunities should be established in order to empower young people to be a force for change and disarmament. So speaking of United Nations, do you know that today is the United Nations Day and also the start of the UN Disarmament Week? So United Nations was established exactly 80 years ago today. So having this event on the United Nations Day is really, really meaningful, and I am so excited. So if you are high school students or teachers and interested in learning more about Critical Issues Forum, please reach out to me, and you can find information about the CIF on our website. And we are also very active in social media, especially the Instagram. Finally, CIF activities cannot be possible without generous support from our donors and friends. I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to the funders and supporters of the CIF project, the Tom and Sarah Pattison Fund, Sagar Foundation, the Catherine Wassemer Davis Conflict Transformation Collaborative Fund, and Mr. Greg Walpert and other individual donors. Thank you so much for your support. And I understand that our great friend, Tom and Sarah Pattison, are here with us today. Thank you so much. So I hope you enjoy today's meeting. Okay, so now I am super excited to introduce our first speaker, opening speaker, Mr. Franco Escobar. So he's a PhD student from United Kingdom, Keele University, and he's specifically focusing on nuclear disarmament and especially youth engagement. So I cannot think of any better speaker for other than him for today's event. Okay, so Frank, microphone is yours. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Masako. Let me just share my screen. So I believe now everyone should be able to see this. And there we go. So thank you so much for having me, everyone. My name is Franco. I research young people in the nuclear age, like the ones you see in the screen. And what you're seeing here is a group of high school students known as the Hiroshima and Nagasaki Peace Messengers. And this is a group that collects signatures for nuclear abolition every year, sends them to the UN, And in this photo, they're gathering around the hypocenter where the atomic bomb was dropped in Nagasaki at this obelisk in the center. So when I do my research about young people and how they get involved in nuclear disarmament, I go to places like Japan, like Canada, or like the US, and I ask them, what is it like to be you? Why are you here? Why are you attending this online event, the Critical Issues Forum? Do you have perhaps motivations related to your career advancement, religion, perhaps? Are you worried about the state of the world? And maybe your motivations are not as important as your goals. Maybe you have specific things you would like to achieve. Um, and perhaps you can tell us more about what your role is in nuclear politics, right? So these questions are important because usually when we think about nuclear history and nuclear politics, it is easy to think that this is a space for prominent scientists and prominent politicians who created nuclear weapons, who make decisions about nuclear weapons, like Oppenheimer, Albert Einstein, Truman, Stalin, perhaps Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, etc., etc. Um, Another narrative we usually have about nuclear weapons is that this is something about devices. This is about warheads and missiles and submarines. This is about deterrence. And if not about these devices, it might be about places, right? So we imagine Hiroshima being wiped out, erased from the map, without life, without color. Um, and what these narratives forget about is that nuclear weapons at the end of the day is about ordinary people like you, like me, and like the children you see here on the screen. These are girls in Hiroshima, many of which would become victims of nuclear weapons. So when one of the roles that young people have played in nuclear history is that they have been victims, right? They have been the single most marginalized kind of person in nuclear history, which is why when we see photos of what happened in Hiroshima, we see people in uniform, still in their high school uniform. And you can see that this is not a place that was erased from the map, right? We have people with burns, people with injuries, and young people are the most marginalized because their skin is thinner, which means it burns deeper and faster. Um, their cells are growing and dividing and reproducing faster, which makes them more likely to experience radiation-induced illnesses, and their bodies are less strong, more fragile, which makes them less likely to escape from collapsed buildings. Um, so we can think of your role as young people as victims, right? You could, if a nuclear weapon exploded, we could think of you as one of the potential victims, like the 38,000 children who died in 1945. Um, just as a reminder, some of the people who died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were as young as the day that they were born. Some of them were in utero, they were still in their mother's womb. And some of them died before reaching adulthood. So this is like very serious stuff, right? Um, so we can see soldiers who were in their 20s and then died from the effects of radiation a few days after they saw these black spots on their skin. Um, some people like Toru and Aiko, in this photo, were 7 and 9 years old. Toru died 4 years after this photo was taken. Aiko died 20 years after this photo was taken. So we can see that this victimhood can be delayed, right? It's not necessarily instant. Um, and then this is a photo of an atomic bomb survivor. His name is Kazuhiko. And I met him in Hiroshima last year. But in this photo was taken 7 years before the atomic bomb. And he told me that he was a victim of the atomic bomb, not just because of nuclear weapons, but because of the increasing militarization of Japan. And therefore, you can see him wearing uniform and weapons because he was being asked to fight for his nation, even though he was a young person. So that's one way of seeing young people's role, right? Another way of seeing young people's role in the nuclear age is to see them as sources of medical and scientific data. So most of what we know of how radiation affects humans, it comes from studies that have done research long-term on young people and how their distance and their shielding correlates with disease or mortality. However, just a note here to say that this lifespan study that was conducted by the US in Japan does not include fallout. It only includes external radiation from gamma rays. This is important because many of the young victims of nuclear weapons suffered from fallout all around the world, resulting from the nuclear tests of the Cold War. Another role that young people have played in the nuclear age is they have been witnesses, right? They have been sources of narratives about not just how Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed, but how they recovered, how young people went to school even after the atomic bomb exploded, and they would go to damaged buildings, or they would go to these blue sky schools without a school, right? To take lessons out there in the streets, despite the lack of food, despite the crime, despite many of the social issues that happened after the bomb. And if you listen to a survivor testimony today, you will likely be listening to memories of a child at the time, right? But it would be a mistake to think that young people can only play the role of victims when it comes to nuclear politics and nuclear war. In fact, here on the left, we can see the crew members of the Enola Gay, the people who went and flew to Hiroshima to drop the atomic bomb. And one of the youngest members was 20 years old, Richard Nelson. It was the youngest in the crew. Most of them were about 27, so most of them would, qualify with the statistic that Masako just gave us between at top at 24. And you may have heard about some of the kamikaze fighters in Japan who were being asked not just to fight for their nation, but to die in defense of Japan at the time, right? So this 17-year-old was one of them. And the reason why I show you these photos is because one of the roles that young people can play is not confined to this role of victimhood, right? And that brings me to what I study in my own research. So in my research, I'm interested in learning more about young people who have resisted against nuclear weapons, who have protested, who have advocated, who have mobilized, organized, and done things to resist this struggle against the bomb. And maybe some of you have known about these cases. So in the United States, there was this very, very famous study that proved that young people, when they took their baby teeth, their milk teeth, you could prove that there was contamination of strontium-90 from the Cold War nuclear tests inside our own bodies. And perhaps you could think, well, that wasn't them, that was their parents who convinced them to, give their milk teeth. But many of these donors, many of these children who gave their teeth to science, kept their certificates proving that they had contributed to this cause. Similarly, many young people refused to be just passive recipients of information, and they created their own journals. So I'm showing you here in the center this journal from Canada called Our Generation Against Nuclear War, which was produced for about some 40 years. And they used to publish, articles and chapters, book chapters, and they were circulating information about nuclear weapons that was contentious, that was not necessarily what the governments wanted people to know about, right? I should say that this journal eventually moved away from nuclear weapons and became kind of like an anarchist journal, but it was nonetheless initiated by young people. And then I have here on the right-hand side, Gary Davis, who, when he was 27, he was an American citizen and he renounced his citizenship, self-proclaimed himself a citizen of the world. And he started this world passport movement where he would issue thousands and thousands of people a global citizen passport. And this may sound perhaps silly, if you may, but some of the brightest minds, like Albert Einstein, Albert Camus, and some other intellectuals, supported this initiative, right? So sometimes it takes a bit of initiative and a bit of enthusiasm and courage to put forward initiatives that you want to fight for. One of the most famous examples that I like to give is, I'm sure some of you must have heard of Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. What most people don't know about this story is that one of the reasons why we have a monument in Hiroshima memorializing her life and her story is her friends. She had classmates who said, we must do something for Sadako, and they began fundraising money to be able to build this monument. Today, thousands and thousands of paper cranes are collected from schools all over the world, sent to Hiroshima as a symbol of our desire for peace and nuclear disarmament, or a world free from nuclear weapons. And this was started by Sadako's friends. So there are many roles, there are many things that young people have done and continue to do regarding nuclear weapons, whether it's victims, perpetrators of violence, or activists against nuclear weapons, researchers, just so many things. But what is true is that we continue to be affected by decisions made in 1945. And that includes the Hiroshima and Nagasaki peace messengers, or the Nobel Peace Prize recipients here in the background, right? These young people who were next to the survivors from Nihon Hidankyo last year. There's many young people in the nuclear age who are involved. And that's why I'm excited to be here. I would like to know more about what is it like to be you? Why are you here? What are you trying to achieve? And what role do you want to play in our time, in our nuclear age? And perhaps a different way of phrasing this question is, how would you like your actions today to be remembered tomorrow? So just to conclude my talk, I would like to encourage you all to think about this, because the nuclear age is still unfolding, still uncharted, and still increasingly consequential, especially when it comes to young people, just like Masako was telling us a few minutes ago. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Franco. That was so thoughtful and thought-provoking, inspiring presentation. Thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe one question. Sorry, we are a little bit tight, but I would like to see if students, participants have a question. Any question? No question is stupid, so you could ask any question. Okay, if you, yeah, and if you are a little bit, oh, I see. Okay, wonderful. Eva,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Hi.
maybe you could introduce briefly and ask a question, please.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm just a high school. I'm a high school student here because I have a teacher who did grad school at Middlebury. He got this email. I've been super interested in nuclear non-proliferation since 2024 when I took a class on just the history of nuclear weapons and proliferation and all that. I was wondering, with proliferation, I was wondering if you could speak a bit on your opinions on nuclear energy as a means of, like, I guess a way to like power countries and whatnot, especially as it relates to non-proliferation. I've heard a lot of things about the UN specifically, talking about like disarming nuclear weapons to take the enriched uranium within them and plutonium and whatnot, and taking those and using them to power nuclear power plants. So I was kind of wondering on your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, and I'm gonna try my best to answer it briefly. But there's at least three things I'd like to say in response to that. The first one is, there's this very cool article called "Nuclear Power Was Born Violent," I think, by Robert Bow Jacobs. I recommend you that reading. It's very short, but basically what it says is nuclear energy was first violent and then used for so-called peaceful purposes. But also, the second thing I wanted to say is we have sort of estimated at what rate we can get rid of nuclear weapons, and usually it's about 1,400 nuclear weapons per year. So if we wanted to dismantle them all, it would take us about 10 years. If you wanted to be flexible and add another 10 years, it would take us about 20 years. So that's kind of like the timeline under which we could get rid of all of our nuclear weapons. And then it comes the third thing that your question touches upon, which is, does our reliance on nuclear energy make nuclear disarmament less irreversible because we have the knowledge, we have the technologies, we have the, what they call latency to create nuclear weapons, and that is for those who believe that nuclear energy can be used in peaceful ways. It means we have to deal with this sort of irreversibility, and where do we stop, right? So yeah, so the more we, how can I say it, the more we make it difficult for countries to proliferate, which includes nuclear energy, the more irreversible disarmament can become. I'll say one last thing and then I'll stop there. But if you have more questions or if you want to discuss this in more detail, please do email me. The last thing I want to say is that one of the things that usually gets not discussed with nuclear energy is that a lot of the harm that has been made by nuclear waste disposal and our inability to permanently dispose of this waste over 100,000 years in some cases is damage that has already been made. It's not damage that will likely happen. And so it's it's a very difficult temporal scale when the one we're dealing with for future generations. And the departments of energy have tried to think about how we're going to communicate why we are doing what we're doing with the future generations. And we don't have clear answers about all of this. So it's a really complex question. But again, if you want to explore some of the details to these questions or books or readings, do send me an email and I'm more than happy to chat. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eva, for a great question, and Franco for the wonderful answer. So I have one more question. Can you go a little more depth about the baby teeth study? I don't think we have a time to go into the details, but Franco, would you like to say maybe just a few more words about this? Then I'm happy to send, or we could send some more reading later. Yeah.
Yeah, so the brief version of this is the fallout from nuclear testing that all nuclear armed states engaged in during the Cold War distributed nuclear radioactive particles all over the world. So we can find radionuclides all the way down at the bottom of the Mariana Trench or all the way at the top of Mount Everest. And sometimes these ubiquitous, this like distribution of radioactive particles can be used for different scientific purposes that create benefits. But it's also IPPNW, the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, have estimated that this distribution of radioactive particles likely has created some inadvertent cancers that are fatal. It's difficult to estimate the number. Some scientists put the number at, I think, what was it? I think like 200,000, I think. I forget the number, so please don't quote me on that one, but it's high. And we were able to go to achieve those conclusions that there was this ubiquitous distribution of radioactive particles, specifically strontium-90, thanks to an initial study that used baby teeth to collect samples from all over the United States first, and then proof that there was these particles were inside our bodies, including babies. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for Frank and also question. So now, before we move to the student panel discussion, I would like to take a group photo. So if you are able to activate your camera, please do so. It's not mandatory, but I would like to see your face. And Max is going to take a picture. So, okay, so please, if you want to, please smile and wave. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Hi.
everyone, are you guys ready? I'm gonna
Yes.
count on three. 1, 2, 3.
Hi.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. Okay. So now I'm really thrilled to move to the next segment, which is a youth panel discussion led by our amazing graduate research assistant, Max Lau. So I'm going to give a microphone to Max, who is going to moderate the youth panel. So Max, take it away.
Thank you very much. Yes, the recording was paused for a second, but it's okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our today's speaker series. My name is Max, as Masako Togi has shared. I am currently a third year at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, or MIS, and I am a graduate research assistant at CNS, or James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation. So I would love to just jump right in to our panel discussion. So first, we would like to invite Manong and Kanong Iwata for Teens for Disarmament. And also, we will put in the link for their more longer bio. So please use the link in the chat. I will add it soon. But please use the link to take a look at our website and their bio. So take it away, Manong and Kanong.
Or just kind of quickly share our screen. Okay, present. Okay, can everyone see our screen and hear us properly? Okay. Okay. So hello, my name is Kano. And my name is Manong Iwata, and we are twin sisters and big advocates for nuclear peace education, which is why we created the nonprofit organization Teens for Disarmament. And our main goal is to empower teens to be the catalyst of meaningful change for nuclear disarmament. Okay, so how do we begin our initiative for disarmament? So during the summer of our freshman year, both of us volunteered in many nursing homes and retirement homes in the greater LA area. And through this opportunity, we were able to meet many hibakusha and hear from their experience under the mushroom cloud in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. And there we heard about the many inhumane and also destructive effects of nuclear weapons. And such, we were empowered to make change from hearing their perspective. And there we continuously seeked knowledge across intersectional disciplines in nuclear weapons, which is why during our freshman year, we even also participated in Ms. Toki's Critical Issues Forum, which was an amazing way to get started into this kind of topic. So that's why in the beginning stages of our nonprofit, we decided we wanted the base of our foundation to be surrounded on teens education, acknowledging the concern that many teens and peers, especially in our area, are uninformed and uneducated about this topic. So we just wanted to make some time in our presentation to discuss about the impact one hibakusha has had on our work. So Ms. Toshie Mosher, who unfortunately now has passed away, has heard about the work that we Teens for Disarmament has done and gifted us a rose called Peace and Harmony to encourage our initiatives for disarmament and world peace. And so that's why throughout this presentation, and also when you look at our nonprofit organization, our motto is always peace and harmony. So in general, some of the activities that our nonprofit does is interviewing and writing hibakusha stories, 2, collaborating with teens across the world, and 3, doing a lot of community and also public policy activities in our world. So here are some of the pictures of the hibakusha that we have met in the LA area throughout the years. So someday the voices of hibakusha will no longer be with us to bear witness, and hibakusha today
play a big role as primary resources and really the only resource for us to really understand the horrific consequences of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. With our organization, we strive to honor their memory and never let this history ever be repeated again. Throughout our journey of talking with these hibakusha, they have truly taught us the gratitude, given the courage to face our reality, and also encouragement to fight for world peace. And after having the honor of meeting many hibakusha and hearing the immediate terror of what happened, we actually recently published a textbook with a compilation of all the hibakusha testimonies we heard. And with this Stories of Hibakusha's book, we hope to continue passing down their stories to future generations unaware about nuclear weapons and their horrific consequences. We are really grateful to have them and have their courage to tell us these stories. Their resilience and inspiration remind us to fight for our future where there will be no more hibakshas.
Okay, so now on to our next activity, the events that we do. So to educate more youth and students in our communities, Teens for Disarmament has invited many guest speakers such as Ms. Kumi Ishida, a second-generation hibakusha, and Mr. Howard Kakita, a first-hand survivor of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, to come to our school and discuss with more than 300 students about their experience. So both Ms. Ishida and Mr. Kakita's testimonies evoked immense empathy and true emotional understanding among many peers in our audiences. And as we kind of interviewed and also spoke with many other peers and also schools across our area, not a lot of people have done something like this. As by doing this was such a big impact, not just for ourselves, but also for the nuclear disarmament community. And so after hearing their testimonies and, hearing some feedback from a lot of our audiences, they said that they've finally been equipped with the proper knowledge to make responsible decisions about these mass destructive weapons. And so, after hearing all of these testimonies, we kind of recognize the importance and impact of learning from hibakusha. And we're so grateful that we can share these stories with the hibakshas in our communities. And in addition, with much excitement and eagerness for learning, Teens for Disarmament has actually collaborated with the United Nations, actually this spring, thanks to Ms. Toki's connections with Youth for Disarmament. And so together, both of us, Teens for Disarmament and Youth for Disarmament, discussed ways teens can promote nuclear weapon education, not only in our community, but also in the world, and aim to reduce nuclear weapons as promoting awareness.
So for the future, we are also in the process of publishing a second textbook, more focused on the history, science, and effects of nuclear weapons, specifically emphasizing their political, social, and environmental impact on our world. We're almost done with this textbook, so keep an eye open on it through our Instagram or our website to see it.
And also, we just like to quickly thank Ms. Toki for always being our guider and mentor throughout this entire process. And if you have any more questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manong and Kanong. What a wonderful presentation. I'm excited for that second series or your textbook. Thank you very much. So let's jump into our second panelist. We have Naina from UWC, International School of Asia, Karuizawa. Please take it away. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this call today. I'm just gonna, I think, share my screen very quickly. Here we go. Okay. All right. I'm not sure. Sorry. Can you see my screen? Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my journey with disarmament. I think like a lot of people didn't really know all that much about nuclear weapons and the threat they pose to our future, and our present and the havoc they wreaked in the past. But my eyes were really open to that when I attended the Critical Issues Forum, which was hosted by the Middlebury Institute, and put together by Ms. Toki. I was invited as a viewer, and it really, I wasn't able to anticipate how much it was going to change my worldview, and what I felt my purpose was as a global citizen. It opened my eyes again just to how harmful these weapons are, not only how harmful they have been in the past, but how they continue to just really pose a very large existential threat to all of our lives, and the responsibility that we as young people really have to, be the advocates and be the change makers, in order to, prevent states from arming themselves, but also in order to encourage disarmament and non-proliferation. So I'm currently a student at United World College's Isaac, Japan. Kenta, who I believe will present later, is also part of the UWC network. And a little bit on that, on the tail end of World War II, a man named Kurt Hahn decided to start the United World Colleges movement. And his goal was really to unite students from all over the world, from differing ideologies, socioeconomic backgrounds, and ethnicities, and put them in a place where they could learn together and learn from one another. And the goal of United World Colleges has always been to promote a peaceful and sustainable future. And there are a few issues that I really think resonate as much as nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation with that statement. So I had the pleasure of attending the Critical Issues Forum right before my journey with UWC started. And I really decided that that was going to be my purpose, going to Japan, the only country that's really been affected by these weapons. It made me realize that this was my chance to sort of make an impact and connect with my peers from all around the world, to promote disarmament and non-proliferation. So, well, it's not letting me. Oh, sorry. So I decided when I was first kind of getting started, how exactly was I going to, sort of spread this message internationally, spread this message in my school, and in my local community. And I figured the best way was to first educate myself. So I decided to interview some experts in the field, and really just ask them sort of 10,000-foot view questions regarding nuclear weapons and their impact in their history. So the first person I interacted with was Dr. Sarah Kuchas-Fahani, who is the former fund manager for the Plowshares think tank, which is located in DC. And then I interviewed Dr. Jamie Kwong, who was a fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. And I, of course, also interviewed Ms. Toki. She's very, very knowledgeable in the field and is one of the forefront leaders of involving youth in this space. And I decided to take their sort of interviews and compile them into a video I made called A Teenager's Guide to Nuclear Weapons. And again, that really just gives a 10,000-foot overview of nuclear weapons and their history and what exactly teens can do to sort of engage with the space, learn more, and advocate. So I shared this to a couple of the UWCs, distributed it, and they were shown in some classes. I also shared it with some of my schools back home. And I decided with that to kind of hold a workshop at my school where some students, came, saw the video, and then I also relayed sort of the significance of the crane to hibakushas and oh yeah, I think someone's holding them up right now. Yeah, just how important they are in as a symbol of peace. So we discussed the history of that, and then I held sort of this crane making workshop as well. And I think that was a good way to sort of connect people to the cause in a very light, not very heavy, not really bombarding them with too much of the details and all of the kind of scarier stuff, because fear is a good motivator, but I believe connection and peace is an even better one. And yeah, so then after that, I decided my next step was really to come back to my community in Monterey and the Carmel area, and educate my peers back home on nuclear weapons. So I visited my former high school of Carmel High School, the Salinas High School, just a couple other high schools in the area, and sort of educated, just again, gave that 10,000-foot view presentation on nuclear weapons, and the harm that they have caused and the harm that they continue to cause. And yeah, just got some people interested, obviously it's not really everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people feel like it doesn't concern them. But I think by sort of doing these presentations and doing this outreach, we're able to get people who maybe otherwise wouldn't really think of nuclear weapons as a large concern to start recognizing how it affects their daily lives. And I think that the biggest step to advocacy is education. You really have to educate yourself first, and you have to try and educate those around you, because that I think creates a really good motivator, and also just a basis and a ground for proper advocacy. And yeah, then the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I had the honor of attending the nuclear politics program at Soka University. Thanks to Miss Toki's referral, I was their youngest attendant. It's mainly made up of undergraduate and graduate students. I was 16 at the time I attended. And it felt very foreign to me because, you know, these were all people who had really dedicated their lives to studying the field of nuclear politics and security. But everyone was so kind and caring and welcoming. And it really made me believe that nuclear disarmament is something we can achieve in the near future. And it's not completely out of reach, and there are people that are fighting for this. So it was very encouraging. I highly recommend anyone who is sort of in a position to apply to this program, because it's really eye-opening. It's just 5 days, and you learn so much about nuclear weapons, and it's just such a tremendous experience. So I would highly recommend it. And then I decided to kind of, when I went back to my community in Japan, sort of continue educating my peers. There's this place in Saitama, which is an area about an hour out of Tokyo, called the Hiroshima panels. They're these very large panels that depict sort of a lot of the pain and suffering and the harrowing events that occurred from the fallout of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And although, again, it's a harrowing experience to sort of look at them, it really just shows you the devastation that these weapons wreaked upon the communities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And what you see here is a photo of, there's kind of a table where you can sort of write letters to those who have passed and those who have suffered as hibakusha from the fallout, expressing, you know, your gratitude for their strength and your gratitude for them sharing their stories. So this is some students sort of doing that, writing those letters. And this is one of the panels. It's just a very moving experience. I highly recommend if anyone is in that sort of area, in Saitama or in Tokyo, to visit it, because it's truly very moving and very engaging. And I also had the opportunity to visit the Peace Memorial Museum in Hiroshima, and that was just such an incredibly moving experience. I think, you know, statistics and sort of, you know, learning about the facts is very important, but what really connects people to this issue, I would say, is emotional connection. And nothing really fosters that the way the Peace Memorial Museum does. It just, I don't think words can really do justice to it. And again, if anyone has the chance to visit, yeah. And so I think the other thing that we were able to do sort of as a group, myself and 3 other students, is we were able to interview people who had just finished viewing the museum and get their initial thoughts on, you know, sort of what they had seen and also their perspective on nuclear weapons. We were able to, the great thing about the Peace Memorial Museum is people from all around the world visit, so we were able to get a plethora of perspectives. And we sort of published that in a short form report within our school community. If anyone would like that, you can reach out to me as well. And we also had the opportunity to visit the Hiroshima Jogakuin, which was a previous attendant of the Critical Issues Forum as well, I believe. And they were very sweet. We talked about what it was like living in Hiroshima decades after the bomb had been dropped, and how their sort of opinion on hibakusha and nuclear weapons had been shaped by living in that sort of area. It was very eye-opening, and just it was great to have that sort of engagement. And further on, I've connected a lot with Dr. Ira Helfand, who I think IPPNW was mentioned earlier. And he was the past president of IPPNW. They were the 1985, I want to say, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. He was also on the steering committee for the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, which was the recipient of the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize. And he's really acted as a mentor to me in this field, along with Miss Toki, you know, sort of connecting me with ICANN, IPPNW affiliates all around the globe, and really exposing me a lot more to the world of nuclear disarmament advocacy. He kindly agreed to come and talk to my school during an Earth Day ceremony that I had organized, and really, again, just relayed the medical effects of what does nuclear fallout look like. And it's very scary. But he also highlighted with that fear what we can do to bring about change. So then I returned again to the nuclear politics program, this time both as a viewer and as a teacher. I was very honored to, you know, be in a position of sort of teaching people, because, you know, I wouldn't really expect it. A lot of these people are far more versed in security and nuclear politics than I am. But it was an opportunity, I think, for growth. And again, everyone was just very encouraging, and I learned a lot from my peers there as well. I was then highlighted in I don't know if people know about the Nuclear Threat Initiative, but they're a DC-based think tank. And they have a Young Voices in International Security sort of blog. And I was able to answer some questions and give my opinion on a few nuclear-related issues in that blog. So I was very honored to be a part of that. And I know I'm taking up a good bit of time, but I just wanted to highlight for anyone who's further interested as a student in getting involved. I know Teens for Disarmament that was just presenting. That's a wonderful organization. There's also Students for Nuclear Disarmament, and that's really grassroots-based advocacy. They've started chapters in various US-based high schools around the world, and they really advocate for kind of back from the brink, which is a proposal that aims to sort of help the US draw back their nuclear arsenal with kind of baby steps. And so you're essentially getting your local congressman or governor or mayor on board with this back from the brink resolution. That's their main goal. So for anyone who wants more details on that, you can reach out to me as well. I've recently been working on establishing a Students for Nuclear Disarmament chapter with the United States-based United World College campus. And so that's gone pretty well. Just, I think Kenta and I are both just trying to work on getting the UWC movement as involved in this and getting international schools in general involved with this movement. And yeah, most recently for me personally, I wrote a paper for my extended essay, which is about 4,000 words on the effect of the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, which I believe someone asked about, nuclear energy earlier. So this really goes into depth with regards to the effect of uranium on the Navajo people. So it's a long and kind of tedious read, but if anyone is interested, you can email me and I'd be happy to send it to you. Yeah, that's just a little bit about my journey. If you have any questions, this is my email and my Instagram, so please feel free to reach out to me at any time. And thank you again so much to Ms. Toki for having me on this panel. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I wish I was in that classroom where you were teaching. Next time when you're in Monterey, you have to be the teacher for me. So yes, thank you so much. So next we have Kenta Gomi, who is the UWC Red Cross Nordic in Norway. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Ms. Masako, for having me here today. And my name is Kenta, and I'm from Japan. I'm currently studying at UWC Red Cross Nordic in Norway, where I have the privilege of learning and living with students from all over the world. Thanks to my school, I was able to attend the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony last December and conduct an interview with Nihon Dankyo in Oslo. Also, this August, I worked at the Nobel Peace Center to organize the Nobel Peace Festival. To begin with, Japan is the only country in the world that has ever experienced a nuclear attack and war. That tragic history gave us, the Japanese people, the chance to truly understand how devastating nuclear weapons can be. However, when I came to UWC and started talking with my friends from different countries, I was shocked to realize how little people actually knew about this reality. The horror of nuclear weapon is not only that they instantly took so many lives through the blast and heat. The true terror lies in the invisible damage caused by radiation. It actually destroys cells and genes inside the human body, and that damage can be passed on to the next generation as well. And the impact doesn't stop with humans. For example, animals, plants, even microorganisms, every single living being on this planet can be harmed at the genetic level. Life on Earth has evolved over about 4 billion years, and tiny creatures were born in the ocean, moved onto land, and gradually diversified into countless forms of life. And at the end of this long journey, humanity appeared. And nuclear weapons have the power to destroy the entire history of life in a single moment, which means they're not just weapons, they're an insult to the very history of life itself. I came to this belief thanks to a powerful encounter with Mr. Tanaka, a survivor of Hiroshima and a member of Nihon Hidankyo. When he shared his testimony, he always spoke about his faith in humanity. He said, even though humans might make the same mistake again, we must keep telling our story. His strength and his trust in people deeply moved me. Now, I, as someone who has inherited his testimony, when I had the honor of interviewing them as an official interviewer for the Nobel Peace Center, I would like to help transform it from Japan's memory into humanity's memory. I think this is a very important factor here. The people who experienced the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki lost their families and friends, suffered from radiation and discrimination, and even lived every day with the fear that death might come for them at any moment. Yet they chose not to remain silent. Instead of speaking with hatred, they spoke with faith in human dignity and hope. Because of their voices, humanity came to share a common belief that the horror of nuclear weapons must never be repeated. This shared belief became what we called recently the nuclear taboo. However, Japan's position is very complicated. After the war and the alliance with the United States, Japan has relied on America's nuclear deterrence for its own security. In other words, Japan is both the only country to have suffered a nuclear attack and the country protected by the same kind of weapon. It's actually a painful contradiction, but also a unique position that forces us to face the reality of nuclear weapons directly. I believe that instead of denying this contradiction, we Japanese have a responsibility to think and act beyond it. As a nation without nuclear weapons, and as the only nation that has experienced their horror, Japan can speak more deeply than anyone about the meaning of not using them. And finally, I would like to talk about my future goals. I know that achieving complete nuclear abolition will not happen easily or soon, unfortunately. I believe that never using them again must be our top priority now. And to make that possible, we must strengthen the moral barrier, the nuclear taboo, the belief that using nuclear weapons is something no human being should ever do. The stronger this moral belief becomes, the stronger deterrence itself actually grows. Because what truly prevents the use of nuclear weapons is not just military balance. It is the conscience of humanity that says this must never be done. That is why I want to take on the challenge of creating a global educational framework to strengthen the nuclear taboo. This education must go beyond borders, religions, and cultures, as like UWC. The use of nuclear weapons should be regarded as an act against human morality, no matter what ground people have. It needs to become a shared human morality. To face the contradictions of our reality and still act for a world where nuclear weapons are never be used again, I believe that's my mission in the future. Every year that passes without nuclear weapons being used is proof that humanity still holds onto reason. And as long as we protect this taboo, there's still hope for our future. Also, UWC has schools all over the world and brings together students from different 180 countries and nations. And in this borderless and diverse environment, I aim to take the first step toward establishing a nuclear taboo within the UWC community. To achieve this, I'm sadly preparing for an online event that will invite all UWC schools. And also, I would like to invite Hibakshas from Hidankyo as well. And I am just one step away from making the official announcements. So I hope to apply the lessons learned from this experimental event to further advance my efforts toward establishing a global movement for the nuclear taboo. Just in short, this has been my journey interacting with Nobel Peace Center and Nihon Hidankyo and Ms. Masako and CIF. So thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm really jealous that you were able to meet those individuals and being even in part of that Nobel Peace event. So last but
Oh, by the way,
not least,
sorry. If you have any questions or something, I'm gonna share my Instagram and Gmail accounts in the chat box. So please contact me.
yes, thank you so much. But yes, now we have our last presenter, Emilia, who is a graduate research assistant at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies. Take it away, Emilia.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sharing my slide first. Yeah, firstly, I'm really impressed by all of the young presenters. I feel like I'm too old to be here, but I'd like to share how I got educated on this issue. I'm from China. Before I came here as a graduate student, I never touched this issue. I never heard about disarmament. In China, all what we were told about the bombing was US dropped a bomb in Japan, then the war ended. But we were never told about the history, the complicated nature about the bombing. So firstly, I would like to introduce some key activities for me in this area. I'm a graduate assistant in CNS, specifically working with Miss Masako. I'm very honored to work with her, and through my work here, I learned a lot of things about disarmament and non-proliferation, and I had the great chance to work with all the high school students. Maybe some of you have seen me during the participation in a critical issue forum. Secondly, I was a participant in Hiroshima for last week for the Hiroshima Icon Academy. That was my first time in Hiroshima, also the first time in Japan. I was really excited and I was really enjoying that experience with all of the excellent young leaders from all over the world and with the excellent organizers. And I had the chance to talk to Hibakusha in person and to know more about them. So I would like to introduce a little bit more about my experience in Hiroshima. So during that program, we had the chance to visit Peace Memorial Park and the museum to learn the history of the war and the bombing. And we had the chance to talk to the governor of Hiroshima Prefecture, and he is very passionate about disarmament and the peace education. So it was really great to talk to him. And then we had a few Hibakusha to give testimony to us. In our group, I talked to Kajimoto-san, and she shared her story during the bombing. Also, she also shared, it's not just the story from August 6th. She also shared how that one day impacted the rest of her life. She's still suffering from the bombing, but she doesn't hate like the US or the Japanese government anymore. She's really passionate about spreading the testimony of the world to remind people of the consequences of nuclear weapons. And here, I would like to share my biggest takeaway from Hiroshima Icon Academy. So we had a chance to listen to Taka-san. He shared the story of non-Japanese Hibakusha. So for the first time, I realized that during the bombing, there were a lot of people who were from outside Japan. There were Chinese and US people and Korean. So it reminded me that the war harms people on all sides, especially civilians, and the nuclear weapons are indiscriminate in their suffering. So lastly, I would like to talk about my motivation, the future goal. So I think my biggest motivation is the people I met in this area, especially young generation. Whether working with high school students for critical issue forum or participating in Hiroshima Icon, I met so many excellent young people, young leaders from all over the world. I'm really motivated by their passion and encouraged by them. I see hope of future of a world free of nuclear weapons from what they are doing. And I wrote the word kindness here because I want to say what we can reflect from the bombing is more than the bomb itself. Through those testimonies, I saw how Hibakusha suffered, not only from physical pain, but also from social discrimination after the bombing. It reminded me that people's unkindness is the root of suffering, while kindness is the best remedy for healing. So I hope that everyone can have kindness toward other people, then we can have a more peaceful world in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amelia. What a wonderful presentation and what a wonderful colleague you are. So I'm really excited to hear a little bit more of the stories while we're working together. So let's jump right in to our panel discussion with all the panelists. So I'm gonna spotlight everybody. So just give me one moment. Yes. Just give me one moment. I'm almost there. Uh, and one more. Yeah, there we go. That's everyone. So maybe just do like this. So thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful presentation. So let's jump in. So the first question I would like to ask is, what has been the most enjoyable part of your nuclear disarmament activities? And for those who are participating online, please feel free to use the chat function to ask any questions. We'll ask this first question first, and then while we are having this discussion, I'll be looking at the chat and see what kind of questions we have. So is there anyone who wants to answer the first question? Yes, Naina, take it away.
Oh, yeah, I think I just wanted to say, and this is like this panel discussion itself, I think is a prime example of it. I think the part I've enjoyed most is just meeting like-minded peers. I think when you first really start out in this sort of space, it feels like there aren't too many people that are, kind of willing to collaborate or that are really thinking about this as critically as it needs to be thought about. But I think as you meet people, you really feel super encouraged, and it's enjoyable. You make a lot of friends, and you feel very empowered to continue this kind of work, and to really collaborate, and just do great things and get projects off the ground. So I would say that's the most enjoyable part for me.
Yes, Manon and Kanon.
We totally agree with what you just said. I think a lot of it is the positive feedback and genuine support we can receive with the people who are collaborating with us, the people who are hearing us speak, hearing the Hibakusha speak. And we're specifically like happy that we get to share and roll out information to our community so more people can read our interviews that we share and develop like true empathy and compassion for human lives.
I feel like all of your kind of presentation kind of touch upon this question. I too, during high school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and this education wasn't really focused on nuclear disarmament. I'm from Canada, by the way. So in Canada, we didn't really discuss about this topic until I went to undergrad and I started to learn a little bit more of the devastation. So I'm really kind of envy all of you of taking this initiative to start the nuclear disarmament process while you are all really, really young. So is there anyone who want to answer? If not, we have no questions on the chat just yet, so I would like to just jump into the second question. So what gives you hope or motivation to keep working towards a nuclear weapons free world? It's kind of a little bit difficult question, but what is that kind of motivator that pushes you each day to kind of think a little bit more of how can we disarm nuclear weapons? Yes, Kenta.
Okay, so basically, when I met Ms. Masako Wada, one of the representative of Nihon Dankyo in August in Oslo, she was working so hard, like 24/7. So even though she was even though she's like, yeah, like 80 years old, um, I mean, at the same time, like it means it will be 10 years for them to pass away. Like at the same time, they're still powerful and trying to conduct their message to meaningful message to all over the world. That motivates me. And also like these kind of opportunities, like all of these kind of opportunities motivates me to push me forward into nuclear disarmament. Yeah.
Thank you, Kenta. Let's go, Amelia.
Unlike what I have said, the people I met in this area is the biggest motivation. By exchanging ideas, opinions with them, I feel more motivated. Also, I sometimes we got disappointed by the current situation in disarmament, but I also say that we have a big space to improve. Like there are still so many people that hasn't been educated in this area, so we have a lot of work to do. So this is also motivated me to do more.
Yes, thank you, Amelia. Um, for me, I think all the panelists mentioned that they visited Hiroshima or Nagasaki or had a discussion with the hibakusha. And I too, this summer, I had this kind of discussion with survivors, and that kind of made me a little bit more motivated. It kind of was really kind of devastating to see these, for example, artworks that was in the museum, how many people were kind of suffering and all that. But how, after perhaps if you could share, after going to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what was your kind of push, more kind of motivator to kind of be the voice of the youth? I'm not sure if that makes sense, but after your visit from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what was your kind of continuation of your motivation? If anyone wants to share your kind of experience. Yes, Mano and Kano?
So we actually went to Hiroshima twice, but I think for us, although both experiences were very valuable, the first one kind of impacted us more because we visited the Atomic Bomb Heritage Museum, toured by Hiroshima Jogakuen students. And there we were able to see kind of the artifacts or human cost of nuclear weapons. And there, like we saw like burned tricycles or like remaining school uniforms of like children. And like Mr. Franco also said in his presentation, like truly the people who were the victims of nuclear weapons were civilians and youth specifically. And so that's why like not just for peace, but also for the future of more youth to come, we wish to make a world that is peaceful and doesn't have any more nuclear weapons.
Yes, thank you so much. Um, is there anyone who wants to share their experience? Yes, Kenta. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. I've been motivated like since I interviewed to the Nobel Peace Laureates, because as the one who directly hear what they want us to do, I kind of felt like sense of responsibility to pass down their stories to the next generation. Yeah, so as a communicator or like as a bridge between young generation and Hibakusha, I I felt like I need to kind of work much harder.
Yes, thank you so much. So we have a couple questions in the chat. The first question by Eva. What do you think the role of science communicators is within the anti-nuclear weapon movement? Is understanding fission? Fission is a scientific term for the nuclear weapons, and how it works, and its consequence and whatnot. An important part of communicating why nuclear arms are to be destroyed. I know it's very, really a big topic, but how would you guys think is an answer? Yes, Naina.
I mean, I'm not like crazy well versed in sort of the science side of nuclear weapons. I would say forte is probably more history and politics. But I think what I can say is scientifically, like when you look at it, I think this is something we've all touched upon, the hazardous effects of sort of exposure to radiation on, you know, the human body and on the environment. I think we can see this even past nuclear weapons when we look at nuclear spills such as Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. I think, or even Fukushima. I think like it's very clear that exposure to nuclear waste, exposure to radiation is incredibly harmful to humans. And I think, you know, scientists, I do feel have personally, I know this is sort of a contentious topic, but I believe that they have a moral obligation to really look at, you know, what it is they're manufacturing and what it is they're putting out into the world and how exactly that's going to be used. I believe it was the Russell Einstein Manifesto that was shared following what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki regarding, you know, how exactly the scientists that worked on the Manhattan Project, some of their views on how exactly the world should proceed with nuclear weapons and sort of the harm that they bring about. So at least personally, I do feel that scientists have a real obligation to highlight the dangers of nuclear weapons and highlight the dangers that they pose to humanity and the environment as a whole.
Thank you very much. Yes, Manon and Kanon.
Also, like agreeing with what she just said, like I know that scientists they do have like I actually studied about a little bit about nuclear weapons in my physics class and basically what their effects can be. And so a really great way to think about like fission or the effects of how nuclear weapons and atomic bombs work is in a box. If you put a bunch of mouse traps and set it all off, if you set one off, everything sets off. And I think scientists really can picture and have a good idea about like what the extreme horrific effect of nuclear weapons can have on an entire society, let alone a small population. And knowing these effects, they have the responsibility to share with the rest of the world. Additionally, I know in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, when the effects occurred, a lot of the people in the front lines of what happened were nurses and physicians who came to help. So they saw the firsthand impact of what happened to these survivors, what happened to the victims, of people who died, these children. So I think as scientists do play a big role in understanding the realm of nuclear weapons and kind of what type of consequences they can bring. So I do agree with her to say that they do have the responsibility to tell the stories and really what effects it does to the human body and our climate.
Yes, thank you so much. Just because of time, I think that would be our last question. Um, yes, so it's 19 right now. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your point of view, questions, and all that. For those who are more interested on this topic, please visit our website. We have many sources from the discussion on the nuclear energy, the discussion on the survivors, and all that. So there, we will put in the link to our website. Also on our Instagram, we have a lot of educational posts, so feel free to take a look to that. So before we end, I would like to pass it back to Masako Toki for some final words.
Great. Thank you so much, Max, and all the amazing panelists. But before I go to the final words, I just wanted to pick up Alison, the teacher's comments, because this is our first question from a teacher who is also really important. So I do believe that Alison's school, International Baccalaureate, could also get in touch with United World College. But maybe we could discuss this offline. One of the beauty of this program is really networking. So I would love to see different schools collaborating for the nuclear disarmament education. So thank you so much, everybody, for asking the presentation and amazing questions. And I will be very brief, but your presentation and this event really gave me hope, and it really inspired me. And it is fair to say that we are going through really difficult time right now in many ways. You know, internationally, domestically, personally. I don't know about the personal level, but at least myself, we have a lot of challenges. But when we encounter such a challenging times, I truly believe it's so important to create hope on our own. And working with the younger generation is the best way for me to be more hopeful. And no matter how the current situation looks dire and devastating, I'm 100% confident. As long as young people like you, today's presenters, and those who joined this event on Friday evening or Saturday morning, our future remains bright. And again, today is a United Nations Day, and I also wanted to touch upon some positive development on the role of science, because Eva asked really great question about the role of science. So the United Nations, for the first time, adopted the resolution to enhance scientists' role in nuclear disarmament. I'm happy to share more detailed information, but I strongly believe that the role of a scientist, and also role of youth, and the role of activists and scholars are so important. And I do believe the partnership among all these different constituents is the one that can make nuclear disarmament activities more efficient and effective. So again, I really want to thank each one of you, presenter and the audience, for spending time with us for nuclear disarmament education. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you. Have a good evening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.